Hello everyone and welcome to another live training session on Unity. My name is Mike Geig. How's everyone doing today? I'm not going to wait for your response. I'm going to assume you're all doing great. So today what we're going to do is we are going to look at integrating Unity advertisements into our game. Now Unity advertisements are kind of a new addition to the Unity game engine offering, and we're going to look at how we're going to use them and kind of what they are and what the rules for them are and how we can use them in our games and how we can make some money with our games and so on and so forth. So before we start, it's kind of worth mentioning or talking about what ads are, what ads are not, what kind of some of the rules are. Now, before I get into any of that, though, as always, I'm going to go ahead and say that if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at Unity3D, at The Ant Ranch, at Will Goldstone, at Matt Mirafish, and at Mike Geig, which is me. So, any questions, whatever, just hop on Twitter and tweet at us and whatever, and we'll see it. So let's talk about advertisements, all right? Unity advertisements specifically. And what you're going to see is Unity advertisements are actually very similar to other advertisement offerings. However, we have a very unique way of going about them, and we have a very interesting and simple to use integration set. So you're going to see that it's very, very simple, very, very easy to do there. Some people are saying that there is an audio echo. Perhaps you have your audio turned on twice, or I don't know. Let me know if there's a weird echo effect. There should not be. As a matter of fact, let me check something here. Okay, we should be good. Okay, so let's talk about ads. What are ads? So in this case, we're going to be talking about Unity ads specifically, and Unity's ad offering is video ad placement inside your games. And unlike other ad offerings, the ads that you're going to see in your games are specifically game ads, and you can filter by genre, and you can kind of have some control there, but you will only be seeing ads that are very targeted towards your gaming demographic and your game players. Now, at this time, we don't have an offering of banner ads or picture ads or anything like that. So, those additions may come in the future. I don't know. However, at this time right now, we are dealing specifically with rich multimedia advertisements, and they're actually really, really cool. So that's what our service is, okay? What our service is not is, again, we don't do banner ads, we don't do picture ads or anything like that, and they're not really a get-rich-quick scheme or a scam or anything. A lot of people are really concerned once you bring money into an equation. They're afraid that they're somehow being ripped off or whatever. Unity Ads is completely free. It's free to use, free to integrate, all that stuff, and start receiving money. And the way it works is, Unity obviously gets a percentage of that. So there's no real way for it to be a scam because Unity only obviously makes money if you make money, right? So it's something it's free. It's actually really easy to integrate and put in there. And but it is worth noting that just by virtue of just throwing a couple ads in your game, you're not gonna become a millionaire. I saw some people in chat being like, "Yeah, I'm ready to be a millionaire." Well, it takes some time and it takes a little bit of thought. To lead up to that. But, there have been a lot of very successful stories with using Unity ads. So we'll see how we integrate them and all that. One of the questions in chat, will we be able to ask questions about revenue? Yeah. I am not an expert on that side of things, so I will answer the questions as best as I can. We may get a couple representatives from the ads team in here to answer some of those like behind the scenes stuff. There's a lot of very mystical going on there. And actually, one of the easiest questions I probably should have figured out before I even started, someone asked how much is the percentage that Unity gets from the ads revenue. I have no idea. So you would think if while I was preparing this, the very first thing I would have figured out was that, but I actually didn't. So sorry. Yeah, I completely forgot to look into that. So yeah, that's our ad service. And our ad service is actually twofold, right? You can be an advertiser or an advertisee, right? An advertisee is the people who make the games, and the games show the ads. Or you can be an advertiser. Maybe you're someone who doesn't actually make Unity games. You can still use Unity ads to display advertisements, in other games, right? So, I know a lot of companies that maybe are using internal tech are still using Unity ads to show their advertisements for their game in other people's games, right? So they are advertisers. Furthermore, Unity ads, while it has the name Unity ads, it actually works on outside of Unity as well. So you can actually integrate the Unity ad service into Android native, iOS native, other engines and things like that. So just because it's Unity ads doesn't mean it actually has to be used in Unity. However, I am going to show it to you in Unity because it's really simple and easy to do. All right, so another thing I kind of want to mention real quick here before you start. I know we're not really looking at a whole lot, but there are some specific rules, and I'm going to bring this right up front because we've had a couple of people actually kind of do the wrong thing, and I'm one of those people too. So I just want to kind of start off by saying that one of the things you certainly cannot do, all right, is install Unity ads and then run your game and then just have you and like a bunch of your friends just click on every ad you can. That's against the terms of use, and it's not just against the terms of use for Unity ads, it's against the terms of use for any advertisement system anywhere. And I know it's an easy mistake to make, so I'm just starting off with that. So don't be like, hey, I put a game on the market, and call your mom and be like, hey, tell all you and all your friends, just download this game and just click these ads 100 times a day. It's not going to work. It's going to backfire. You're going to get banned. I actually learned that the hard way with Google Ad Service a long time ago on my own webpage, and I just kept clicking the ads, and I got a letter and whatever. So it's a simple mistake to make, but I'm just going to kind of mention it right up front, just so you're aware of it. All right, so that's enough talking about that from me right now. So let's actually kind of get into the nuts and bolts of how we do this. One of the questions is, can we advertise a game we've made in another game we've made? And yes, absolutely. Absolutely, you can certainly do that. If you are interested in learning more about the design elements of ads, like where's the best place to put an ad? What part of my game should have an ad? How do I best utilize ads to make money? That's not really what this session is about because, I'm just going to show you the technical side of it. However, it is worth going over to our blog, blogs.unity3d.com, and right on the front page there, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a designer's guide to using video ads, and there's so much information about where to place it and use cases and all this stuff here, and tons of very good data there. So be sure to go and read that, and this will tell you how to maximize your money and stuff like that. But so be sure to check that out. All right, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead and get started with this whole process here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go over to the Unity Ads site. So I'm just going to pull this up here. To get there, that's unityads.unity3d.com right there, and that's going to bring you to the Unity Ads website. And the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a profile, right? So you're just going to want to sign up. It's free. It takes a second. I believe you just have to give it an email address, and you might have to click and confirm that email address. But I think that's about it. So once you've created your account, right? I just went to log in, but once you've created your account, it's going to bring you to the Unity Ads dashboard. And you can see I have actually made no money because I'm not actually showing any ads, but here's my dashboard. So there we go. I can see my eCPM is not a number, which means they try to divide by 0 because I've shown exactly 0 ads. So yeah, there we go. And so when we first create, here, you know what? So the people are asking for that link directly in the chat. So let me just drop it in there. There we go. Let's see. All right, so once we're into our dashboard, the very first thing we need to do is we need to create a games profile, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Games. I can click Games here. I believe if this is the first time you've created a project, there's actually just going to be a giant button right in the center because you don't have any games yet. But since I already have one game on here, I'm not seeing that. So I'm going to go over here to Games. And I'm just going to click that. And I'm going to see that I have one game right now, and that's The Tale of Sir Lancelot. And so, someone was talking about the blog page. Yeah, you can just get it from going to blogs.unity3d.com. So what I have here is I have a game already, The Tale of Sir Lancelot, and I can see that it's the Android platform. So as we add game profiles, right, we're going to identify whether or not we want them for iOS or Android. Now, a lot of people are kind of like, hey, why do we have to have two? Why can't we just have one for both iOS and Android? And the fact of the matter is, it's actually really cool that we can separate these out by platform so that we can target certain ads and certain campaigns and certain styles based on which platform we're on, right? Because the buying behaviors of the different marketplaces are very different between Android and iOS. So you can kind of capitalize that a little bit and tweak it to be what you want. So I have the Tale of Sir Lancelot right here on Android. I'm going to go ahead and add the version of it for iOS. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add New Game. And it's going to say, hey, what's your platform? I'm going to choose iOS. Now, it's going to say add an iOS game, and it's going to say enter your iTunes application or URL below. Now, obviously, this is not a published game, right? I have not put this on the iTunes store, so I can't really just search for it here. Luckily, we have, hey, look, my game's not live. What am I going to do? So I'm just going to go ahead and click here and say, hey, this is a development project. It's not live yet. When it is live, I'll just update this information here. So I'm going to add an unpublished game here, and I'm going to say, oh, hey, look, it already popped up for me. The Tales of Sir Lancelot, and I'll hit Add Game, and this is the iOS version of the game. And then it's going to say, hey, are you targeting this at kids? And I'm just going to say, no, this is not targeted at kids, and I'll hit Continue. And there we go. Now I have my two games here, and I'm going to go ahead and go into my iOS version, right? And I'm going to just see information about this game. So first off, my overview again is blank because I have no ad request. I can see how many ads were started versus how many were actually watched all the way through, which is super useful. And a bunch of other monetization stuff. A lot of this stuff doesn't mean anything to me. Personally, I find the concept of money to be very scary, so I try to ignore it. But for those of you who actually are attempting to make money, it might be kind of important to read about those. What I'm interested right now is this right here, this game ID. All right, that's going to be my bread and butter. This game ID is what's going to tether ads that are shown to my account. So if you are watching along, right, and you decide to make your own game, don't use my number. Don't use 33675 because that means all of your ads are going to give me money and not you. That being said, if you really want to use my number, I'm not going to stop you. I'm going to get your money. One of the questions here, can you add games of other platforms like PlayStation 4 or PC? Not currently. Currently, the offering is iOS and Android. I don't know about the future plans of the team, but right now, iOS and Android. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy down this number here so I have it. And we'll get into what all this other stuff is later, but for now, we're just going to sort of leave it at that, and I'm going to hop back over to Unity. All right. So here in Unity, I have a really simple project kind of already in place. We have a scene and there's nothing in it besides my light and camera. And all I have is a single script called timer display. And all timer display does is it counts up. So it's meant to go on a UI element with text, and it just outputs the current time on there. And we'll be using that later to kind of illustrate something. So it's already in here, so I don't have to go through the process of writing it. So the very first thing I need to do is I need to download the Unity Advertisements asset package from the asset store. Now it's worth noting that currently we have to download the asset package. In future versions of Unity Engine, all right, so 5.x at some point, hopefully soon, advertisements are just going to be integrated directly into the engine, and we will no longer have to go to the asset store. So it's worth noting that I'm showing you a workflow right now. We're going to be downloading the package, but you won't always have to do that. As a matter of fact, some of the code is also going to change. Some of the API is planned to change in the future. However, it's all going to be very similar, and the theory behind all of this is going to be exactly the same. So it's still worth noting. Plus, I don't know when those changes are going to happen. So I'm going to go to Window Asset Store. I'm just going to pop open the Asset Store here. I don't want to move the tab. There we go. And I'm going to search for ads. And here we go. Unity ads. Very first thing here. It's a small download. It's 1.9 meg. Real simple. So I'll just go ahead and hit import. There we go. Import. Give that a second. Okay. There we go. And that's going to put a couple folders here. I'm going to have the plugins folder, and I'm going to have the standard assets folder. And those are just part of ads. We just leave them in those folders. We generally don't touch them. All right. And so let's talk about what's needed to have the very basic amount of code, the very minimal amount of code required to actually show an ad in our game. All right. And it's actually really, quite simple. So in my scripts folder, I'm going to create a new script. I'm going to create a C# script. And I'm just going to call this simple ads. It's fine there. And I'll just go ahead and in my scene, create a new game object, which I'm just going to call ad manager. Its location is irrelevant, so goodbye. My ad manager here. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop simple ads on that. And let's go ahead and work in this. All right. One of the questions is, if a company name needs to be or is needed for registration, does an indie or does it mean an indie cannot earn money from Unity ads? No, your company name can be whatever. I believe for my account, my company name isn't even Unity. I think I used the word Bronana. I think it's just a matter of organization. In case you want to have multiple people from the same company and they can more easily link accounts and things like that. But it doesn't really matter. Okay, and so I'm going to have my script here, and let's just zoom in so stuff is more zoomy. We like things being zoomy. All right, let me just clean this up. At one point in the past, I figured out how to default my template here, and then I reinstalled and lost it. So there we go. We'll just clean that up here. So the very first thing that we need to do to show ads at all is we need to sort of import this library. We need to use the namespace of it. So we're going to start by saying using, and we're going to say Unity Engine .advertisements. That's the very first thing we need to do. This is super important because without this, we don't have access to any of the advertisement goodness. All right. So that's the first line of code we need. We actually only need 3 to show ads. So there we go. That's our advertisements namespace there. And so the next thing we need is we need to initialize our ads. And so I'm going to go ahead and say advertisement, and I'm going to say initialize. All right, advertisement initialize. And this is a function here. So you can see I'm going to pass in 2 things. The first is an app ID, and the second is going to be this test mode thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my app ID, and that's taken as a string. And you remember from the dashboard, it's this number, 33675. If I pop back over the dashboard, we can see 33675. So that's what we need right there in string form. And the second is whether or not we're in test mode. Test mode means, hey, don't show me live ads. I'm just testing stuff. And when we're in the editor, we're automatically in test mode. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say true, which is going to make sure that I'm always in this test mode. It's important to be in test mode because what you don't want to happen is you don't want to be debugging and testing a game, even if you're not necessarily working on ads directly, in live mode, because our servers are going to be showing real ads, and we're going to be recording the fact that it's just the same device just constantly chugging away with the same ad. It's going to look like a scammer or anything like that. Remember what I just talked about not just clicking all your ads over and over and over again. And so the server is going to say, hey, wait a minute, we're getting an awful lot of requests from this one device. Something's going on here, and it's not going to go well. So by putting ourselves into test mode, we're only seeing test ads, and none of that stuff is going to happen. All right. So just be kind of aware of that. That's this test mode. We're actually going to look at an interesting way to use it here pretty soon. And actually, test mode is going to probably go away in the future anyway, because we'll look at exactly why that is. So now that we have our advertisements namespace, we're just going to initialize our advertisements there. And the very next thing, the last thing needed to actually show an advertisement is advertisement.show. All right, 3 lines of code, really, really simple. Now, there is a caveat here we're going to talk about, but basically, this is as simple as it gets. 3 lines of code. Namespace, initialize, show. Now, what we're going to see is this doesn't actually work, and I'm going to explain why. But let me pop open Unity here, and I have that ad on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. And we're not actually going to see an ad. Okay? Yeah, and there we go. And the reason we don't actually see an ad is twofold, actually. The first problem, and this is a real gotcha for a lot of people, all right? Since Unity ads are only meant to work on iOS and Android, we can only see them in the editor if we are in iOS or Android build mode. And as you can see, I am in PC, Mac, and Linux standalone build, so I'm not going to see any ads. Just not going to be there. So I'm going to pop over to File, Build Settings, and I'm building for iOS, so I'll switch over to iOS. Let's see here. Let me read some of these questions here. Would you just do preprocessor statements for putting both iOS and Android IDs in your game? Yep, that's generally what I do. Is I have the pound if Unity underscore iOS, then my iOS ID, else if Unity underscore Android ID. So real simple way to do it there. Preprocessors there. Another question, how do you get auto words to come up in Monodevelop? Should happen automatically. If it's not, maybe you're having an issue. Let's see. Also, will they interfere with game operation while the device the game is running on is connected to the internet? No, so the ads will actually pause the game. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, actually. So now I'm in iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch mode. Do they still make iPod Touches? I don't even know. But I'm going to go ahead and now hit play. And again, I don't see an ad. However, I do see now output in my console that I didn't see before. And the reason I don't see an ad is this. Advertisements, the initialization of advertisements, whoops, wrong window, let me just minimize that, takes a little bit of time. Not a long time, but it's got to initialize, it's got to download the ads and stuff like that. So initializing and then immediately attempting to show is not going to work, all right? Just because it's attempting to show before initialization is ready, right? What you really need to do is you need to attempt to show an ad once your advertisements are initialized, okay? And so if we had this advertisement.show somewhere else, like on a button click or whatever, it would work fine right now. But since we're attempting to call them sequentially, obviously it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and simulate a little bit of time passing using a coroutine. It does add a little bit of complexity to the code, but just remember that the important parts are the namespace, the initialize, and the show, and the other stuff is I'm just sort of building a pretend structure, like I'm playing a game, and now it's time to show an ad or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull this out of here for now, and I'm going to go ahead and simulate this time passing by using a coroutine. So I'm going to say IEnumerator, just show ad when ready, will be fine, and then inside here is going to be real simple. It's going to say, we're just going to say while not advertisement dot is ready. Okay, so while not advertisement dot is ready, and is ready is a function there. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to yield return null. The result of this is that this coroutine is just going to sit here and wait and wait and wait and wait until our advertisement is ready. All right, this is a very important line of code here. We always want to use the is ready to determine if an ad can be shown. That way we're not trying to show an ad and nothing happens, right? And then we think, oh, what happened? Was there an error? Well, there was not really an error. It was just a logical error, really, because an ad wasn't ready and you tried to show it. So we just wait for it to be ready. And once it's ready, that's when we do the advertisement.show. All right. And so then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start this coroutine. Start coroutine. Show ad when ready, and there we go, and life is good, and we can move on. All right, so real simple. Oh yeah, I forgot my parentheses there. Real simple little script here. So what we're doing is again initializing the namespace, using the namespace, initializing the advertisements. This is just going to simulate some time passing. So we're going to wait for the advertisement to be ready, and then we're going to show it once it's ready. All right. So in Unity now, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to hit play, and there we go. Now, I'm in the editor, all right, which means my ad is going to look like this. No matter what I do, my ad is going to look like this, all right? It's boring. It doesn't look like much. On device, even in test mode, there's like a little test video and a test image. And then in real mode, you're going to see like real ads. So it's going to be kind of boring. We're going to look at this and you have to sort of use your imagination, like, oh, check out those graphics or whatever, because we're not actually going to be able to see that in the editor. And I don't have a way to stream my phone or iPad or whatever to Twitch. So we're just going to have to kind of pretend. Question here. Mike, my game is right landscape oriented, but the ad is showing the opposite. Is there a way to control the orientation of the ad? I believe advertisements will be landscape left, but your phone should be able to do landscape left as well. I don't know. Actually, I'll have to look into that. That's a really good question. I thought the ads should rotate with the device. So either you may have a bug, or maybe I'm just not understanding it right. But anyway, it should take on whatever landscape format your phone is in. It might be a phone issue. Maybe you have an auto rotation issue or something. I'm not entirely certain, but it should work. Let's see. Another question: have you used ads much, and have you earned more than $100? No to both questions, because I have not. I don't actually post my games to sell. I really should. I make enough of them, but no, I don't. I just make them to teach. I don't actually make them to make money. So I have not. Other people have though, and they've done very well. Crossy Road made like $4.5 million in like 45 days or something ridiculous. It's so yeah, certainly viable there. Okay. So here's our real simple thing, just seeing some basic advertisements. Like I said, only really 3 lines of code needed. 4 if you count the advertisements.isReady, which is actually a very important function. So we'll just call it 4 lines of code needed to show ads. But the rest of it's all kind of controlled through the dashboard, and all real simple and basic there. So next, let's go ahead and look at a more practical example, all right? Because, that's, a real basic example. That's not really indicative of anything that will actually happen. So let's go ahead back to our ad manager, and I'm just going to remove this simple ad script for now, because we're going to create a new one that's a little bit more complex, and we're going to go from there. So I'm going to create a new script. So I'll just right-click, create C# script, and this one I will call ad manager, and this is going to be my more robust script. All right, and I will put ad manager on my ad manager game object there. All right, so this script is actually going to control showing advertisements for my game, and it's going to be a system by which other pieces of my game can just sort of say, hey, ad manager, show an ad for me, right? And sort of control it that way. All right, so let's go ahead and open up this script here. And the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to, let me just nuke a lot of this stuff here. As always, I'm going to do using Unity Engine.advertisements. There we go. And what I want to do is I'm going to create a serialized field, which is a string called game ID. This way, if I ever need to change, 33675. If I ever need to change that, yeah, hey, look at that, solid memory. If I ever need to change that within the editor, I don't need to come back into the code or whatever. Serialized field makes it appear in the editor without making it public, so I like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to say void awake, and again I'm just knocking out my required bits, right? So I'm going to say advertisement.initialize, and this is where I'm going to get it ready, and I'll pass in game ID and true for my test mode. All right, so this is just going to handle initialization whenever my ad manager wakes up, and so that's good. Now, the next up thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make it so I have a function that other parts of my game can call to show an advertisement. And we're going to start making this system a little bit more and more robust as we go on. So I'm going to create a public function. So I'll say public void show ad. All right, it's my show advertisement function here. And what I'm going to say in here is if advertisement.isReady, we remember this. If the advertisement is ready to show, I'm going to say advertisement.show. All right, so show ad just says, hey, is my advert ready to show? If so, go ahead and show it. Yeah, real basic stuff there. So I'll go ahead and pop back over to Unity. There we go. Let it compile for a second there. And I'm just going to make this real simple thing. We're just going to make it a button click thing. So in my hierarchy, I'm going to click Create UI Button. And I'll pop over into 2D mode, kind of zoom out here, and the button's all the way at the bottom there for whatever reason. So let's go ahead and just reset that position. There we go, and let's, make it bigger. Big old button. And inside my button, I'll just say show ad for the text, and we'll just make that, let's just make that best fit. There we go. All right, so I want to show this advertisement when I click this button, so I will add an on-click event, and I will add my ad manager to it, And in my drop down, I'm going to say Ad Manager, Show Ad. Nice and simple. All right, now let's go ahead and try it out. So we'll hit play. In my console, I can see that my initialization happened. All right, just written as text here. And then I'm going to click Show Ad. And there we go. Your ad would be here. Things seem to be working. Cool. All right, and then I'm going to leave Show Ad. All right, so far so good. Now it's time to highlight actually a really important piece of the way ads works currently inside Unity and how they're different from a device. So generally speaking, we want our project to work in editor as close to it would on device as possible, right? So when I have a device, right, and if I click, hey, show my ad, right, the ad pops up and the device, actually the game behind it, pauses. But in the editor, it does not. In the editor, there's no real way to pause simulation, right? So we would say that on a device, ads are modal, right? They stop everything else until the ad is done. But in the editor, they're non-modal. And let me illustrate that for you here. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know what, I'm going to create a new scene, which I'm just going to save scene as main 2. The scene itself is completely irrelevant. Let me go back to main. And in my build settings, let me add main and main 2. All right. I just want to have a blank scene. This just to illustrate. If you're following along, you're not going to do that step. And in my code here, what I'm going to say is show ad, and then after show ad, I'm going to say application.loadLevel main 2. Now this isn't a good idea anyway, this particular structure. There are other ways you'd really want to do this. However, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. So if you were to have a piece of code like this, and then you'd come back over to Unity and go ahead and run this, you'd click show ad, and you'd say, hey, why didn't I get an ad? What happened, right? And if I were to build this and put it on my iPad or my Android phone and hit show ad, I would see an ad. And then when I left the ad, it would load the next level. So this is a disparity between the way the editor works and my device works, right? So that's the first real kind of gotcha as far as how things work. I'm going to assume right now that my ads aren't working. They actually are. I just happen to load the next level immediately so my ad doesn't show, right? Or it blips super fast and you don't get a chance to see it. All right, so there are things we're going to want to do here to this show ad method to make it behave more like the device would. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to sort of simulate modality by stopping time while we're showing an ad. All right, and this is real simple. And again, we're going to use those preprocessors we sort of talked about before to differentiate iOS and Android. Now we're going to use it to differentiate the editor. One question here, someone said. Someone asked what type of ads, and someone said interstitial video ads is correct. Am I allowed to test how an ad works on a real device, or will it possibly get me banned as well? Actually, I'll show you how we can do that. So don't worry about that. There is the test mode, but there's something else we can do too, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this behave as if it was modal on a PC. So what I'll do is I'm actually going to create a new coroutine. So I'm going to say IEnumerator. All right, and this one's just going to be called wait for ad. There we go. Wait for ad is a coroutine, and inside here we're just going to do some time hijinks. And so I'm going to go ahead and say float current timescale. Just create a float to contain this, and that will be time.timescale. I could just know the timescale, but if your game uses a custom timescale, you wouldn't want to just assume. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say time.timescale equals 0f. This effectively pauses your game. It stops everything that relies on time. Anything that needs time no longer happens, right? So if you multiply something by time.delta time, it's going to be 0. If you do, anything like that, this effectively pauses your game, all right? Even animations stop playing, things like that. It just stops. And then I'm going to say yield return null, which is going to pop me back in here after a frame, right? Don't do yield return like new wait for time and pass it a time, because remember, time's not working, so that'll lock you out forever. And then I'm going to say while advertisement dot is showing, all right, I'm going to say yield return null. So while the ad is showing, we're keeping our timescale completely off. And then when the ad is done, I'm going to say time.timescale equals current timescale. So I'm just going to set my timescale back. So this method here pauses the game, waits for the ad to stop, and then comes back to the game. So it simulates modality, makes the game stop running. All right. And now up here inside my show ad here, I'm simply going to say if Unity, if Unity editor, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start coroutine, and that coroutine is going to be wait for ad. And then here I'll say end if, there we go, and some proper tabbing. There we go. Hey, call that a day. All right, so if we're in the Unity editor, we are going to simulate modality. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to just comment that out for now. I'm going to demonstrate this to you. So let's pop back over to Unity. And what I'm going to do real simple on the canvas here is I'm just going to create a UI element, some text, which I'm going to put in the upper right-hand corner. Up there. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and... I stretched it. I did not mean to stretch that. I want to do that. There we go. So there we go. There's our text. Let me zoom in on that a little bit. And I will go ahead and just make this... Wow, it's gigantic. That's certainly not what I want to do. There's my text. Okay. And I don't want to spend a lot of time just on text here, but I'm just making it visible, so some text there. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my script, and I'm going to grab my timer display that I just imported. Timer display is a real simple script, just basically saying, hey, get your text, I'll put the time, right? Nothing major to it. Now remember, I commented out that modality, so I can see 1, 2, it's counting up. So I'm going to hit show ad on 4. We'll wait a couple seconds. I'm going to pop back out, and it had kept going, right? So my game kept running behind the scenes. Now we'll come back to the editor. And in my ad manager, I'll uncomment that. And let's try it now. Obviously, we know it's going to work because I wouldn't have bothered to show it to you if it wasn't going to work. So I'll show ad on 5 seconds. Wait a few seconds. I should have got some like elevator music or something. And we're still on 5 seconds. Cool. All right. So modality works. Now this matches the editor, or the editor matches devices more clearly. Cool. So that's just another one of those gotcha things just wanted to bring up to make you aware of. All right. So let's talk now about this concept called zones. All right. And for zones, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my dashboard here. All right. So here's our dashboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm in my overview right now. I'm going to come over to monetization settings. Ad campaigns and ad creatives are for people who are showing ads, people who are paying money to be advertisers. Now, this is more about people who are advertisees, right? We want to be monetizing people. So we're going to go to monetization settings. All right. And I can say, hey, my game is ready to start showing ads, and there's not a lot here. I'm going to go ahead and click Advanced Settings. Ooh, Advanced. Okay. And when I go into Advanced, I can see that I have these 2 zones or placements. All right. There's 2 built in right now. Default video and picture zone, and then rewarded video zone. So generally, this is a matter of ideology. Normally, our video ads can be skipped. All right. However, there are a lot of times where we want to do something rewarded, like, hey, user, if you watch this advertisement for me, all right, I will give you something. All right. Crossy Roads is a great example of doing that, and there's a lot of other that have been very successful with that. And those videos cannot be skipped. And we can control those with our ad placements here. So default video and picture zone can be skipped. Rewarded zone cannot be skipped. You see the word picture in here. Don't kind of be confused. It's a name that's been used previously for other features, and we may have pictures in the future and whatever. That's just the name of it right now. We can also create new ones. So we can say, hey, this is a rewarded zone or not a rewarded zone. For not rewarded zone, we can say, hey, allow the video to be skipped after so many seconds. Give it a name. Can we change the video's orientation according to the device? You may, the person who had the issue with the landscape previously may want to check that so it can move with the phone. And whether or not we want to mute the audio, which we certainly don't want to do. Yeah, and then we can save that. I don't need to create a new one, but just to be aware of it. Otherwise, we have our video placement zones here. So again, default video and picture zone is going to be the one we show anyway if we don't specify a zone. And then we have this one here. And we can use these zones to determine the functionality of the zones and the ads, and also possibly in the future the ability to target them with campaigns and creatives and do a bunch of more specific things depending on the zones we're showing. All right. Before I hop back in and we actually use these zones, I want to kind of talk about the rest of these features here. So we also have ad filtering, all right? So we could say, hey, only show my ads in these countries, right? Or don't show my ads in these countries or whatever. So if you have a game that's localized specifically to, say, the Japanese language, right? You're going to want to focus on countries where you have a large amount of people who speak Japanese and maybe, avoid the countries where a lot of people don't speak Japanese, right? Because there's really not a whole lot of point of showing specific ads or having ads at all in those countries or whatever. Or showing ads that are targeted towards Spanish-speaking people in your country where there's no one speaking Spanish or whatever, right? So we can have geographical filtering. We can also blacklist genres, like say, hey, I'm making a kids game. I don't want any ads that are super violent, or I want to avoid action games, or hey, I'm making a kids game. I definitely don't want it to be educational, or whatever, right? And so we can turn these things on and off through our blacklist here, all right? And then finally, we have this, let me just reset or click off, click back on, because I don't want to change this. The last one I want to talk about is this ad test mode. So we saw before in our advertisement scripts that we are just using this test mode equal to true. And I recommend always making this true, like always making this true. And the reason is because we can actually control that through here. We can say add test mode, client setting. And the reason is we'll leave it in test mode. But if we were to build and deploy our game with that test mode still set to on, we think, oh man, now even our users who are actually playing the game are going to see these test advertisements. Well, actually, we can just click in here and we can say, hey, client setting means it's just going to go over whatever's actually written in the code. Or we can say, hey, force off. Now we're going to see real ads no matter what. Okay? Or we can say force all. That means no matter what the client says, we're only showing test ads. Finally, we can say, you know what? I want to show real ads for everyone, but I am developing a new version. So I just want a couple of my devices to show test ads, right? And so again, we can just do test ads here. Now, there is one other feature that's not really a feature, so to speak, but someone on the ads team had mentioned it's something they can do. If for whatever reason you need to actually test real ads in your game, but just for testing, not actually in deployment, you can actually message them and they'll just put a flag on your account that says, hey, we're going to show them real ads, but it's not actually real ads, they're just doing it for testing. Definitely don't abuse that. I would not recommend it unless you had a very specific reason for doing it, which there really shouldn't be, but you can do that. I wouldn't do it. It's extra work for them, and I don't think they'd be so keen to even hearing me say that was an option. But yeah. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave this at client setting, or I'm just going to say force all, which forces everything we made in test mode no matter what the client says there, and I'll leave that. So those are some of the more advanced settings here. And I'm going to remember that I have this video placement. I'm going to do rewarded video zone. I'm just going to copy that name or that ID, and I'm going to hop back over to Unity. So zones are useful for a lot of things. Again, they're useful for controlling whether or not we see rewarded videos versus regular videos. But what's neat is we can actually have certain zones ready while certain zones are not ready. So for instance, let's say I've shown reward ads to a user so many times that they no longer get reward ads because, advertisements are only going to be shown on a valuation basis. So if a user's seen too many ads in one day, they're not going to get any more ads. Or if they see a bunch of ads but they don't click on any of them, their value as a user is going to go down and they're going to stop showing them ads and stuff like that. And all of those checks and balances are in place to keep your valuation high as someone who shows advertisements and to not waste the money of the people who pay for advertisements, right? So it's to keep the whole system kind of on the up and up. And most advertisement services do use a system like that. Now, the actual rules of that system, I do not know or understand. Again, money scares me, and it involves like ECPM and BP, whatever, right? So words I don't know. But basically, there's an evaluation process and stuff like that. So we may say, hey, I'm going to show a rewarded ad, and then we say, hey, is ready, and the answer is no. Maybe they don't get a reward ad anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Is my regular ad ready? And if it says yes, I'll say, okay, I'm going to show them that ad instead, or whatever, right? So the way we control that is we say, hey, is ready, and we pass in the zone that we want to check, right? So I would say is ready, rewarded video zone. And if that's ready, then I'm going to show my rewarded video zone, all right? If I don't pass anything in, all right, if I leave it empty, it's just going to default to whatever the default one is. And in our case, the default one is this default video and picture, all right? Now, in the name of this being more robust, we actually don't want to hard code this in. So I'm going to say show ad. I'm going to change this function to actually bring in a string. So I'm going to say show ad, and my show ad is going to say string zone equals empty string there. And then before I'm ready here, I'm going to say if string dot equals. This is just a faster way of doing this. So if zone equals nothing, right, which means the user didn't specify anything, all right, then I'm going to say zone equals null, all right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and pass in zone here. Not zoner, that would be weird. Zone. So basically we're either passing in null or passing in whatever string the user specifies. All right, so if they don't pass in, if they don't specify anything, null gets put in here, which is going to give us our default. If they do specify something, then that's the one we're going to see. All right. Now I'm going to hop back over to Unity, and I'm going to click on my button, and my button's going to say, hey, the method that I'm looking for is missing, because we actually changed it. So I'll just re-add it. This time it's looking for a string, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in the name of my rewarded video zone in here. So now when we click the button, we're going to see a rewarded zone as opposed to the default zone. Now again, we're going to have to use our imagination, because I'm in my editor, and I just see this boring screen here. But if I were to deploy this to a device right now and I were to hit play, I would see a non-skippable test ad that says, "Hey, this is a rewarded ad," right? You're showing something that's not skippable and it's something that's rewarded. All right, but for now, for us, I'm just seeing this generic window. But we do know it's working. As a matter of fact, I could put a breaking point in here to see it. But basically, we know that we're passing in a string, and that string is being dumped in there. We're saying, hey, the zone is ready, so show me that ad. So if I had passed in a zone that didn't exist, then this would just say it's not ready, and I wouldn't show an ad. So by virtue of us seeing that screen, we know it's working appropriately. All right, let me check the chat here real quick to see if there's any questions. Let's see, so about Max Payne. Is it allowed to suggest watching the ad to support the developer? I imagine that's fine. It's just don't be abusive about it where you're just like, hey, you 100 people just sit in this room all day and just click this button, because that's certainly a no-go. Let's see. Someone asked a question about interstitial ads. So interstitial ads are basically advertisements that are shown in between scenes, which you can or can't do. It depends on your design strategy and whatnot. As Stephen McKnight pointed out in the chat, it's always a good idea to put a skip button on the interstitial ads so that users can just advance if they want, as opposed to forcing them to watch the entire ad. But again, it's entirely up to your strategy. I would take Stephen's advice, though, since he actually works for the ads team, and he probably knows a lot more about the inner workings than I do, so it's probably a good idea to take his advice. Let's see here. Let's see. What payment methods works in Unity ads? I actually don't know, so hopefully Stephen in chat can post that. I'm not sure how that works. And let's see. Someone said, what is a zone supposed to mean in this context? A zone is the type of ad you want to see. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, and so one more question is, how do we actually use this rewards? And we'll actually look at that the very next thing. So one of the things is, hey, how do we say, hey, if you watch the ad, you get 10 coins or whatever. So we're going to look at that actually next. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about callbacks, which is kind of the last part of ads, right? Ads is actually a very simple thing. You want an ad? Is it ready? Show it, right? There's not a lot of depth there because there doesn't need to be. A lot of it's just controlled through the dashboard and whatever. But one thing that is very important is to say, hey, tell me when a user watches an ad. Furthermore, maybe could you tell me if the user watched the whole ad and things like that, or was there a problem or whatever. And so what we're going to do is we're going to explore this concept of callbacks, right? So Unity Ads supports the ability to have callbacks, which are going to let you know when an ad is finished. All right, and there's a lot of ways we can write them, but we're going to put it right here inside our ad manager script. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create a callback. And so it's just easily going to be a function, right? So it's going to be void, we'll just call this add callback handler, all right? And the callbacks always take a variable type show result. Show result is a variable type, object type, that's going to contain the result of an advertisement attempting to be shown, all right? So inside here, this function is going to be called when our ad is done showing, and it's going to tell us what the result was. So we're going to say, we can easily say switch result, and stop doing that. There we go. Monodev has that fun like tabbing spacing glitch thing there. So we're going to say case show result dot finished. Okay, so this is when the ad finished, all right, and the user watched it all the way through. And so let's say debug.log. Here's where we would actually give the player a couple coins or whatever we want to do. I'm just going to write to the log, and I'm going to say ad finished. Okay, rewarding player, just to simulate what we might actually do there. And then break. Now let's do case show result dot skipped. Okay, so this is where the ad was shown to the player, but they didn't watch the whole way through. Now, if we're showing a rewarded ad, you won't see results skipped, right? Because we're not giving the option to. However, if we show them a non-rewarded ad where they can skip it, and then we ask for a callback, we'll know whether or not they skipped, all right? So if they watched the ad but skipped it before it ended, I'm going to say ad skipped, and then I'm going to say, son, I am disappointed in you. Really make them feel bad about it. All right, and then there's another option here. So our last case is going to be show result failed. Okay, this is where we attempted to show an ad, and something happened. Either the ad didn't show, even though it was ready, it didn't show, or there was an error and the ad crashed, or whatever. This is when something that the user didn't do caused them to not see the ad. And if that happens, I'm going to say debug.log, and I'm going to say, I swear this has never happened to me. Yeah, that's never happened to me before. I swear it. Okay, and then finally, here we go. So this callback handler now is going to control, or not control, but tell us when these things happen. We could put code in here to reward the player and to do whatever we want. And this is just real kind of generic way of handling it. Now, it's worth noting, well, I'll talk about that in a second. So this is the function that's actually going to show this stuff, all right? But it's not actually a callback handler yet. It's just a function, right? So I need to turn it into the callback handler for my advertisement. So here I have my show ad, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, I'm going to create a new variable of type show options, which I'll just call options equals new show options. Now the show options are the options for showing advertisements. And right now there's only two parts of it, two members. The first is whether or not we're going to pause the game, so whether or not it will be modal on device by setting that to false. We're going to say, even while the ad is showing, play the game. However, that doesn't work with Unity games because Unity games by default pause, right, when they're not focused. All right, and actually most games pause nowadays just by virtue of how the operating system handles multitasking. And so that option may actually go away in the future because I don't think it actually works the way it used to based on newer operating systems and stuff like that. So we're not going to worry about that. The one we are curious about is the options.result callback. And our result callback is going to be add callback handler, just like that. We're just going to make that the callback. And so then we say if advertisement is ready, advertisement.show, we're going to say zone, comma, options. So there we go. So now we're passing in these options, and then the ad's going to show, and then it's going to call our callback handler. All right, and so that's real simple and easy there. Now, it's worth noting that if you wanted to make this more robust, obviously this ad manager shouldn't be responsible for actually giving your player coins and stuff like that. So what you could do is into this show ad function, you could pass your own function to be the callback handler. You just pass them as a delegate, and then in here, add that delegate to the result callback and pass it in or whatever. If you're curious about that, there's tons of stuff on delegates. We have stuff on delegates on our own site. But that way, other parts of your game can say, hey, show this ad, and here's my own callback handler. Just call this when it's done, and the ads will handle that for you. All right, so we have our callback handler now. So I'm going to go ahead and pop back into Unity. And all that's going to build and do its thing. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Now, again, we're not going to be able to see, right, what we want to see. I am going to click show ad. We're going to see our ads, right, whatever. And I'm going to hit close. But again, we're in the editor, so we don't really get to see all the goodness. So I will see that add finished rewarding player. That's the only option I'm going to be able to see in the editor because it's the editor. It's not actually showing me ads, even test ads with skippable buttons and things like that. So that's the sort of thing you're going to have to run on your device to see it work. And that kind of stinks. I really did look for a way to stream from my tablet to show you all live, but there just wasn't one. And I meant to get some screenshots, and I didn't because I was having technical difficulties. So sorry about that. But you get the idea, right? And so this is kind of all of the pieces of advertisements. It's really simple, all right? We just use the namespace. We initialize it. If it's ready, we show it. And we have the option to specify callback handlers and zones if we want, right? Zones are certain types of advertisements. Callback handlers is like, hey, let's do something once the player has viewed the ad. And that's basically advertisements completely in a nutshell. So I'm going to leave this code up here, and I'm going to go ahead and read the chat again. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Let's see. All right, so that's that. We have confirmation that if you're an indie company or an indie dev and you don't have a company name, you can use your own name. So there you go, confirmed. Let's see. Can you change the name of a game at a later time? Yeah, I believe so. Even if there isn't a method, I don't know if there's a method of doing it from within here, but you can always message us. You can message the ads folks, and they can just fix it for you. I've actually had them do it for me before, so it's certainly possible. Though it might benefit you to put the actual name in here. Not to mention that even if you come up with some name, like I have, this name here, and I change my name later, it doesn't really matter. In here is only I see that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's see. Can you cross-promote your own apps with Unity ads? Absolutely. Let's see. Let's do something after the player has seen the ads. Show more ads. Definitely a bad idea. Also, just so you know, I'm no expert, but also a really bad idea to attempt to show an ad when the user is trying to close your game. That's just kind of a jerk move, and that will make your users very mad. So don't do that either. Let's see. Okay, I believe that's all the questions. I believe I'm up to date. All right, so that is advertisements. Now, again, I'll make these scripts available. They will be posted on the Unity website, unity3d.com/learn. You can just go ahead and hop over to that section. I'm talking about it. Let me just show you. unity3d.com/learn. Come to the live training. You can see here's our live training right now, integrating Unity ads. Next week, asset bundles for anyone who's interested. It's awesome. I'm going to promote my own stuff. Maybe I'll take some ads out on it. And then once they're posted, you can see the archives here, and in there you'll see all the code samples and stuff like that. So I will be posting the code for you. Highly encourage you to try it out, on device, just to see the ads, see what they look like. It's really simple to do, and if you have a game that's currently out, really, really simple to put ads in there, really, really simple to monetize, and bring in some money for the people playing your game, which is, has been very successful in the past for a lot of people. So it could certainly be successful for you. Again, going to reiterate to check out the blog on successful ad design, because that is not my forte in any way, shape, or form. The concept of money scares me. I try to stay away from it. Free is my favorite number. And so, yeah, I don't tend to look at that stuff, but definitely check it out if you're looking for successful strategies. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever, want to chat, whatever, you have money you want to just give me, sure. Message us on Twitter. You can reach us at Unity3D, at The Ant Ranch, at Will Goldstone, at Matt Mirafish, and at Mike Geig, which is me. If you have any of those questions, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the stream here, but I am going to stick around and answer any questions if you all have any more questions. All right, so thanks again for watching. Hopefully I'll see a lot of you next week. And if you have any questions about ads or whatever, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.